Who has believed what we have heard, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by others, a man of suffering and acquainted with infirmity. And as one from whom others hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him of no account. Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases, yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions and crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his stripes we are healed. Friends, this is the word of the Lord.
Continuing in Isaiah 53, verse 6. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have all turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By a perversion of justice, he was taken away. Who could have imagined his future? For he was cut off from the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. They made his grave with the wicked and his tomb with the rich, although he had done no violence and there was no deceit in his mouth. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
A reading from the Gospel of John. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts, one for each soldier. They also took his tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, "Let us not tear it, but cast lots for it to see who will get it." This was to fulfill what the scripture says, "They divided my clothes among themselves, and for my clothing they cast lots." And that is what the soldiers. Especially because that Sabbath was a day of great solemnity. So they asked Pilate to have the legs of the crucified men broken and the bodies removed. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But then when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once blood and water came out. He who saw this has testified so that you may also believe. His testimony is true, and he knows that he tells the truth. These things occurred so that the scripture might be fulfilled, none of his bones shall be broken. And again, another passage of scripture says, they will look on the one whom they have pierced. After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the religious leaders, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It can be tempting to take the events of Good Friday as solely personal. As people of faith gathered here today on a Friday night, no less, we have certainly all been touched and moved by this day in a way that has changed our lives. After all, the story that we hear read and proclaimed and sung year after year is a story of unending love and exorbitant grace we cannot help but respond to on a deeply personal level. It is a story that has transformed our lives, a story that has quite possibly and literally saved us from guilt, self-hatred, self-righteousness, grief, addiction, debilitating fear. Whatever it may be, we have each been personally changed by this story. And yet the drama that unfolds on Good Friday is more than just a story of personal salvation. In John's gospel, we see that even on the cross, Jesus is concerned about community, wanting to ensure that his beloved disciple and his mother have each other in his absence, people to depend on and care for one another. That's why we come together on a day like this. We are not alone, and Jesus did not want us to be alone. But Jesus is concerned about more than just our personal relationships, too. He cares about the way the world is ordered, the way systems and powers and principalities ensure or deny the image of God that is in each of us. Jesus, throughout the events of Holy Week, beginning with the political farce of Palm Sunday, continuing with the overturning of the tables at the temple, the Last Supper, and washing of the disciples' feet, takes a stand against the powers and principalities of his day, both religious and state. Jesus, in his life and death, sought not only to transform the lives of individuals personally, but to transform the systems of power, oppression, injustice, and violence publicly. He was born into a Roman-occupied Palestine, and the language of Rome was violence. Through military strength and might, they forced their subjects into oppressive taxes and domination. And those who resisted, those who dared to dream of revolution, those who tried to fight back, were quickly dealt with through state-sanctioned murder. And throughout Jesus' life, we see him resisting this kind of violence and resisting this kind of tyranny. On Good Friday, Jesus finds a way to opt out of Rome's culture of violence. They came for him while he was praying in a garden. They came with lanterns, torches, and weapons. But by choosing not to fight back, by choosing not to rally his troops, his band of followers, Jesus finds a way to subversively resist Rome's power and influence. Peter is instructed to put away his sword, and Jesus refuses to participate in a system of violence. When he is taken before Pilate, we hear Jesus say, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." He says this not to declare that he has given up on here, but to declare that as we continue to live here, we do not have to be bound by the rules of those in power here. And perhaps that's why the Jesus we find in John's gospel can be so courageous, so collected, so confident. He is not simply a lamb led to slaughter. He is a man who has found a way to resist a system of dominance and violence, a man who has chosen to lead a revolution, a peaceful, nonviolent revolution, but revolution nonetheless. He knew that the only way to truly beat an unjust, oppressive system at power in the world was to choose another way altogether. And this way was with suffering and death, but a way that would bring redemption to it all too. No one really understood that, not immediately anyway. His disciples denied him. The religious leaders and the state let out a sigh of relief, thinking they had squelched that problem. But we all know that the story doesn't end today. And if we are to faithfully follow Christ to the cross today, we too must choose to work against the systems of violence, injustice, and oppression in our lives. The work that Jesus began on that first Good Friday is done once and for all, but it is not yet complete. For we live in a world where state-sanctioned murders still exist, where preemptive strikes are approved and accepted by our elected officials. Violence, inequality, and fear are still languages we know all too well. But as people who follow Christ, who have been saved by grace, who testify to the goodness of this day, we must continue to protest and resist that violence. For we are not only citizens of this world, we are citizens of the household of God, and we are liberated from all that strangles life, love, and justice. We do not have to conform to immigration systems that subjugate and fear the other. We do not have to conform to market systems that reward unchecked greed. We do not have to conform to militarism, materialism, or any other ism that is used to perpetuate hate or harm. Rather, we are called to confront these powers and work to transform them. Those who control the system are threatened by those who can envision a different way, just as the powers in Roman-occupied Palestine were threatened by Jesus. But Good Friday is a call to community and family in the widest and most expansive sense of those words. And Good Friday is a call to take up our cross and follow Jesus in his march against injustice. As we remember the death of Jesus Christ today, let us take the time to consider, how are we called to take up our cross and follow Christ? And what sins and ways of the world must we put down, shed, let go of, so that we can take up that cross? As we listen to these next Messiah pieces, I encourage you to think about that, and we'll come together for a time of confession.